You know that quiet, slightly maddening moment when everyone else seems to have moved on, and your mind is still stuck on a single conversation, a decision, or a what-if that refuses to leave. You're sitting in a cafe in London, or driving through Toronto traffic, or lying awake in a Melbourne apartment at 1 a.m., or walking home after work in Berlin or Chicago, and the same loop is still running. The meeting ended hours ago. The text was sent yesterday. The choice was already made. Yet your mind treats it like unfinished business that must be solved before you are allowed to rest. Smart people don't just think more. They get trapped inside their own intelligence. If that feels familiar, this is for you. Today we're going to look carefully at the real psychology of why intelligent people overthink almost everything and what actually helps stop it. Not vague advice, not another list of breathing exercises that disappear the moment real life returns. We are going to examine the mechanisms, the research, and the practical shifts that make a measurable difference in the daily lives of people living in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and Germany. Stay with me until the end. Most people who struggle with this never receive a clear explanation of why their mind works this way. You are about to. High intelligence does not protect you from overthinking. In many cases, it quietly makes the problem worse. People with stronger cognitive abilities tend to score higher on what psychologists call need for cognition, the genuine enjoyment of effortful mental work. They notice nuances other people miss. They can hold multiple perspectives at the same time. They generate possibilities almost automatically. That same capacity becomes the perfect fuel for endless analysis. What begins as careful thinking slowly turns into a habit of never stopping. Daniel Kahneman's research on dual-process thinking is especially useful here. System 1 is fast, automatic, and intuitive. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and effortful. Smart people spend far more of their conscious life in System 2. They question first impressions. They run mental simulations of possible futures. They check for hidden variables and second-order consequences. The difficulty is that System 2 has no reliable off switch. Once it starts turning a problem over, it can continue for hours, long after the thinking has stopped producing anything new or useful. The mind keeps working because it can, not because it should. There is another powerful mechanism at work. Intelligent people often have a lower tolerance for uncertainty. The unknown feels like an unfinished equation, and the mind treats unfinished equations as problems that must be solved before rest is allowed. Bluma Zeigarnik discovered what we now call the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished tasks stay more active in memory than completed ones. Your brain keeps the mental tab open. For a high-ability mind, almost everything can feel unfinished. Every conversation that might have been handled better. Every decision that still carries unknown outcomes. Every relationship that holds a faint question mark. Every email that was worded slightly imperfectly. The tabs multiply. Mental energy drains. Background anxiety rises. Sleep becomes lighter. Presence becomes harder. Thomas Borkovec spent decades studying worry and reached a crucial conclusion that still shapes clinical understanding today. Worry often functions as a form of cognitive avoidance. It feels like problem solving. It feels responsible. It feels like the intelligent thing to do. But a large part of its actual job is to keep you from fully feeling the discomfort of uncertainty or fear. As long as you are analyzing, you are not fully sitting with the emotion. The analysis becomes a sophisticated, socially acceptable way of staying busy inside your own head. The temporary relief strengthens the habit. The next time uncertainty appears, the mind reaches for analysis even faster. Susan Nolen-Hoeksema's long-term research on rumination showed how this process becomes self-reinforcing. When people respond to distress by repeatedly focusing on their symptoms, their causes, and their possible consequences, without moving into concrete action, mood worsens, problem-solving ability drops, and the sense of being stuck deepens. Rumination is not the same as useful reflection. Reflection looks for understanding and possible next steps. Rumination circles the same painful material, often with a self-critical tone, and calls it thinking. Over time, the brain becomes more efficient at entering the loop and less efficient at exiting it. So why do smart people fall into this pattern more easily? Because their minds are unusually good at generating material. In the achievement-oriented cultures of North America, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Germany, where planning, self-improvement, performance, and foresight are highly valued, this tendency is often rewarded in school and at work, until it begins costing sleep, relationships, creativity, and everyday peace of mind. The same mind that can anticipate problems better than most is also the mind most likely to live inside those anticipated problems. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. For many intelligent people, a quiet obstacle on that path is the habit of living almost entirely in the head, analyzing experience instead of inhabiting it. The mind becomes so skilled at commentary that the direct sensory experience of life grows thinner. Moments that could be simply lived are instead reviewed, evaluated, and stored for later analysis. Presence becomes something that has to be earned after enough thinking has been done. Abraham Maslow noticed something similar among people moving towards self-actualization. Many of them valued solitude and deep reflection, yet the healthiest ones also knew when to stop reflecting and simply live. The difference is not the presence of thought. It is the capacity to decide when thought has done its useful work and when it has become a form of avoidance or self-attack. That decision is a skill, and like any skill, it can be strengthened. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow offers a useful contrast. In flow states, attention is fully absorbed in the activity itself. Self-conscious analysis drops away. Time perception changes. The mind is highly active, but it is not standing outside the experience commenting on its own performance. Chronic overthinking is almost the opposite of flow. It is attention turned inward on the process of attention. The result is mental fatigue without the satisfaction of progress. There is also a strong link between overthinking and perfectionism. Many intelligent people hold high internal standards. Those standards can quietly turn every decision into a high-stakes examination. The fear of making the wrong choice, saying the imperfect thing, or failing to anticipate every possible outcome keeps the analysis running. The mind believes that enough thinking will eventually produce certainty and safety. In reality, many important domains of life relationships, creative work, career direction, health simply do not offer complete certainty. The search for it becomes endless. Digital culture amplifies the problem. Constant access to information, comparison, and other people's carefully edited lives gives the overthinking mind endless new material. A single social media post can trigger hours of internal comparison and reconstruction. The mind that is already skilled at generating scenarios now has a continuous feed of raw material. The result is often a low-grade, persistent mental noise that feels normal until it is interrupted. Now let us look carefully at what actually helps approaches grounded in the research rather than generic suggestions that evaporate under real pressure. First, develop the ability to recognize the difference between productive thinking and unproductive rumination in real time. A simple question works surprisingly well and can be asked silently. Is this thinking generating new information, a clearer decision, or a concrete next step? If the honest answer is no for more than a few minutes, you are probably looping. Simply naming the process even quietly, saying to yourself, this is rumination, or this is the worry loop, creates a small but important distance. Research on emotional and cognitive labeling shows that putting an accurate name to the experience reduces its emotional intensity and makes it easier to choose a different response. Second, deliberately close the open loops that the Zeigarnik effect keeps active. Unfinished tasks, unresolved conversations, vague intentions, and half-formed decisions occupy mental bandwidth whether you are consciously thinking about them or not. Capture them externally in a trusted place. Write them down. For each one, decide the very next physical action, even if it is small. Once the brain registers that the item has been acknowledged and parked somewhere reliable, the internal pressure often drops noticeably. This is not productivity advice for its own sake. It is a direct intervention on one of the core mechanisms that keeps intelligent minds spinning in the background. Third, practice tolerating uncertainty on purpose and in small doses. Smart people often try to think their way all the way to certainty before acting. The difficulty is that many important areas of life simply do not offer that luxury. Choosing small actions while uncertainty is still present trains the nervous system that it can survive without having every variable solved in advance. Over time, the demand for complete certainty softens. The mind learns through experience that action can generate information that thinking alone cannot. Fourth, give worry a container instead of fighting it all day long. Clinical approaches influenced by Borkovec's work have found that scheduling a specific time and place for worry reduces its intrusion into the rest of life. Set aside 15 or 20 minutes. When anxious or repetitive thoughts appear outside that window, note them briefly and postpone them to the scheduled time. During the scheduled period, worry deliberately and thoroughly. Paradoxically, giving the mind official permission often lowers the overall volume and intensity of worry across the day. Fifth, move the body and deliberately change the sensory environment. Overthinking is heavily verbal, abstract, and self-referential. Physical movement, especially walking outdoors or in a different setting, shifts the brain out of the purely linguistic loop and into sensory and motor processing. You do not need a perfect exercise routine. Even 10 or 15 minutes of walking while deliberately noticing what you see, hear, feel, and smell can interrupt a spiral more effectively than another round of internal debate. The shift from abstract thought to concrete sensory experience is one of the most reliable circuit breakers available. Sixth, strengthen the capacity for non-judgmental awareness of your own mental activity. Carl Rogers emphasized the power of listening to one's own experience without immediate evaluation or criticism. Many intelligent people have a harsh internal critic that activates the moment reflection begins. Learning to observe thoughts, feelings, and impulses with a degree of neutrality, neither suppressing them nor being fully carried away by them, weakens the emotional fuel that keeps overthinking going. This is a trainable skill. It improves with consistent, patient practice. There is also a deeper identity level shift that helps many people. A significant number of intelligent individuals unconsciously link their worth and identity to the quality and quantity of their thinking. Resting the mind can feel like laziness, decline, or a loss of self. Replacing that narrow equation with a broader one that a well-lived life includes periods of clear thinking, periods of focused action, and periods of simple presence reduces the internal pressure to keep analyzing. You are allowed to be more than your thoughts about yourself. None of this means you should become less thoughtful or less intelligent. Deep, careful thinking remains a genuine strength in a world that often rewards speed over depth. The goal is not to dull your mind. The goal is to stop paying the unnecessary tax that chronic overthinking extracts in energy, sleep quality, relationship presence, creative output, and everyday enjoyment of life. You are not broken because your mind works this way. You are carrying a high-powered cognitive system that was never given a clear user manual for when to power down, when to shift modes, and when to simply stop. The research is consistent across decades. The same mind that generates endless scenarios, anticipates problems, and notices subtle patterns can also learn to recognize the unproductive loop, interrupt it with skill, and choose a different response. Start smaller than you think you need to. Notice the next time you are 3 layers deep in analysis of something that does not require that level of scrutiny. Name the process. Close one open loop by writing it down and deciding a next action. Take one small step while uncertainty is still present. Protect a little space each day, even 10 minutes, where the mind is allowed to be quiet without having to earn that quiet through more thinking or more achievement. Your intelligence is not the problem. The untrained habit of turning that intelligence against your own peace of mind is the problem. And habits, even long-standing and sophisticated ones, can be reshaped with clarity, patience, and consistent practice. If any part of this felt uncomfortably accurate, I would like to hear from you. In the comments, tell me which aspect of overthinking costs you the most in your daily life: sleep, decision-making, relationships, work focus, or that constant low-level mental noise that never fully switches off. Those specific details help other people realize they are not alone with the same pattern, and they help all of us understand the real human cost of this very common struggle. Take care of that powerful mind of yours. It is capable of remarkable insight, creativity, and depth. It also deserves periods of genuine rest, presence, and simplicity. You do not have to earn the right to quiet your mind by thinking enough first. You can choose it. I will see you in the next one.